Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
In today's episode, we are talking to Nardia Joy all about self-love. The key points we're going to explore are the 3 lives you live, how dating and loving yourself helps you date your partner, why we need to replace happily ever after, and why self-awareness is the birthplace of all transformation. Now let's get into it.
Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Tonight, we are welcoming Nardia Joy, who is a leadership consultant who helps bold and brave founders and leaders in business to grow and transform the way they lead and work together. She uses truth, love, integrity, and alignment. She's also the Rainbow Fire Love Queen, where she leads a community teaching women how to love themselves from the inside out. With over 20 years of varied experience, Nardia shares her teachings from a culmination of her life healing, personal growth, intuitive work as a naturopath, as well as wellness and leadership coaching. Ultimately, she helps people on their journey back to loving themselves. Welcome, Nardia.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. What a privilege.
Just to kick it off, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. In what context? Because I've got many hats and many lives.
It does sound like it from your bio. Yeah.
You ask me anything and I'm an open book.
We see you as a self-love specialist. That's how we've come to get to know what Rainbow Fire Love Queen is and about that real deep self-love. So how did you get to be the self-love specialist?
So kind of obsessed with self-love. It's and to be honest, if it is my absolute mission and purpose in life is to teach people how to love themselves, one person at a time on a global scale. And I think everything that I've done has brought me to that realization. And Rainbow Fire Love Queen is the birth of that movement, because it's I'm just trying to create a community of like-minded women. At first, I have plans to do Love Kings and then Rainbow Fire Love Kids. We're going to go all the way because I do really believe that self-love is the single most important foundational lesson for all humans. And I also think that we don't get love. We only get love in a romantic sense or a context, whereas to be honest, the relationship, I believe, always reflects what you do and don't love about yourself. And so what I realised in my own personal journey, and I came from a really adverse childhood and, had lots of suffering. So self-love was, in the end, kind of like my wild discovery that if I could love myself whole, then there's nothing, we can't do. So I certainly have loved my very damaged and broken self whole, and then spent my life trying to teach other people how to do the same thing as a naturopath for 15 years and now in leadership in startups, particularly with founders, in radical ways. I teach love. It doesn't look like that all the time because people don't quite understand, what self-love actually is, like what and so probably let me clarify that, and then you'll have a full.
That was going to be my next question anyway, is what actually is self-love?
So from my context and perspective, that self-love is the response that you have to any given moment in your life, which means you meet life with what you need the most. And when you meet life with what you need the most, it's the single most loving thing that you can do. Therefore, so it's not, people are like, do I say in the mirror, I love myself? No, you live, I love myself, which means quite basically, if you're tired, you sleep. If you're hungry, you eat. If you're frightened, you speak about it or put your hand up or get therapy or overcome your fear. Whatever is the single thing that you need the most, you give yourself the love as the response to that, or the thing that you need the most. And you live that day in, day out. And then what happens to you is you become full and whole and connected and confident, not because of anything external from you, because you met the moment with love, which was your greatest need. And so what we do is we look for love in all the wrong places. We, berate ourselves and deny ourselves and torture ourselves, overwork, undereat, over-exercise, all of these things, looking for good feelings in all the wrong places, and therefore end up, attached and addicted to all the wrong things, disconnected, tortured, suffering, and then we meet someone I'm like, oh my God, you complete me. You're so wonderful. Oh, I need you. You're my soulmate on the first date. And we do that because we can't do it ourselves. So then all of a sudden what we're actually falling in love with is you were actually nice to me, and you reflected the good things, and you showed me that I'm beautiful, and you reminded me that I'm nice and good, because I won't do that for myself. So what I realize is that's what you can see in relationships. And I realize that the power of a relationship is that it acts as a mirror. And when you can look at yourself and look at what your relationship's reflecting to you, you are the one who has to fill that cup up, that bucket up, meet those needs first and foremost. And then, and only then, can your relationship do the same. And I realise that the power of humans is in this beautiful free thing that we're all sitting on, that we have no idea what to do with or how powerful it really is. So that's probably a very long answer.
No, it's beautiful. And honestly, that's part of how we came up with the name Fuel Collective. If we all, as human beings, and those of us in relationships, those of us in relationships with ourselves, as a collective, we're all refueling ourselves and refueling our relationships, what world would that create? So I really love that, because that is the first cup.
You're so right that transformation starts with you and ends with you. And then you come into that relationship whole, or at least you attempt to let a relationship reflect to you where you're needy, insecure, frightened, not whole, and then go do your work. Whereas what people do is go, you fill me up, keep me whole and complete, and then I can only, and then you do, and I'll do that for you, but we won't do it for ourselves. And then relationships start to leak and crack when we are topping up each other, rather than we fill ourselves up and we meet full and we meet whole, and then we start hanging out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. The power in transformation is in the individual, and I believe it's in, self-love. And I've got two boys, and we do love lessons. Like, I teach them, so it's a consequenceable offence in my house to put yourself down, to no never. So they could probably swear and get less punishment than they would for putting themselves down, because I'm giving them negative feedback and all the things that deplete us from, love.
What are the signs that you're not loving yourself and that you could have some help in that area?
Yeah, so some great ones are, if you put yourself down, you don't love yourself. You can't be in the state of, you can't be in abuse and hate. And I always say this to people, and I reflected it the other day to a client of mine, and I said, would you speak to your child about her body the way you speak to yourself about your body? And this one was like,
yeah.
I said, would you tell your child what would you think when you eat a chocolate bar? And she goes, I just started to reflect, because every time she was eating something, she's like, you're bad, you're going to get fat, this is gross, you're worthless, all language. So you can't do that and be in love. And I'm really brutal on self-deprecation. If you live in Western society, then it's a first world hang up to put yourself down. Like, that means you're too comfortable. Sorry. If you're going to spend your time going, I'm fat, I'm ugly, my toes are awful, picking your bodies and yourself apart, you need to go in a third world country for
such
that.
Privileged problems to have.
It really is a first world problem to have, and I'm like, I have zero tolerance on it, because it's a choice. And if you get food, shelter, water, TV, Netflix, and all of these things, then surely we have a duty of care and a responsibility to at least go, thank you, body, for being alive. Thank you, home, and thank you, water, and all the things that are really important. So I kind of want to really shake people up and get out of this culture of just deprecation. It just irks me, and I'm not, like, I understand why people did it, and I was a champion at it. I had a PhD in self-abuse. So that's the first thing you can do. The other thing, the real red flag is when your partner isn't in alignment, you fall apart. That's a real tell that you need them to be a certain way for you to be happy. So that's a big red flag. I was like, oh my God, you're not happy, perfect, praising me. I can't cope. I'm not sure what to do. And I'm either going to project out onto you or go into fear and feel unlovable and unworthy of love. So self-doubt is another one where you start second guessing. People pleasing is another sign that you are not filled with love. And that's why when I described it before, saying it's meeting the moment with the thing you need the most, that's between you and you. No one else can do that for you, meet that, not even your loving partner. You have to meet your needs, and then you can be seen, right?
And what are some of the things, because I mean, like that self-doubt and those putting yourself down, those are often like internal conversations. They're not things that you're saying out loud. What are some things that you might observe in your partner that's indicating that they're not loving themselves?
So what every relationship needs to know, I believe self-awareness is the key to all transformation. So I believe self-love is the key to humanity, but self-awareness is the key to and the starting point or the birthplace of all transformation. So what that means is you need to know so not only do you need to know your signs, symptoms, flags, and you need to own them and expose them. And I believe couples need to start getting really real with each other straight away, because to survive the first 3 months, after you get through the first 3 months, you're going to hit each other's ego at one point and you're going to see it. So you're perfect until you strike ego. And then when you strike ego, you're like, oh, you were perfect, but oh, you.
That was yucky.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so insecure and jealous. Or, oh, you're a bit controlling. I thought you were perfect. So that's the part where we need to start getting real. And that also lets us know if we can see each other's egos, can we sustain, do we have strategy, skills, tools to get past the first, ego, mining for ego? Because it's really important that you then create some shared language, which, hey, I notice when you get, when you're off or you're out of alignment, you start getting judgmental or nasty or really jealous and insecure. You need to start have the language and the relationship where you can reflect the truth onto each other, and the other person could say, yeah, all right. Like if it's a man, he might say, yeah, all right, can you leave it with me? I need to think about it, and, go in, observe it, take some time, spin it, and come back out. Whereas a woman, if you're going to, project this onto a woman and say, hey, you've gone a bit crazy, you're being really insecure and needy, and it's pushing me away, because that's what neediness does to a man. It's the most unattractive thing, as control is for a woman. And she might want to talk through it and cry, like she'll be like busted. So she often, the clients that I've worked with feel often busted and will want to cry and talk through it. So you've got to have a relationship where, one, yourself, what you do when you go into those states, and then you've got to have some dialogue as a couple so you can challenge each other on that really gently and at the right time. But you've got to remember, your job is not to get the other person in alignment. It's their job, their commitment to show up, get themselves in alignment, own that they're not in alignment, tell you why, tell you what they need, and go sort their shit out. It's really important that two people take care of their emotional responsibility themselves, and then you just kind of champion the other one in, is ideally how I think it needs to play out.
Yeah, kind of like that idea that how do you most delicately hold up the mirror for your partner to see themselves?
That's exactly bang on and nailed it. So how do I, with love, tell you that you are not quite right? And when do I tell you? And how do I not go into fear about that? How do I not make it my job or project? How do I not get defined by that? So there's a lot you've got to do. And the reason we don't do that really well in relationships is because, remember, their love at us, streaming at us, is the thing that makes us feel whole and complete. Not us. Single people don't look in the mirror and go, oh, I love you, I need you. We should, but we don't. So when our partner can't hold that love, beams, can't, pierce us with love beams because they've got something going on, a lot of us can fall apart. So it's being able to go, hey, it's okay. I don't need them to hold me up. I need to take that. I'm feeling insecure because disconnected for a while. I need to share that they've disconnected, but I need to hold space and go do my own work and fill my own bucket up. So you've got to know what your issues are, whether you're a self-doubter, a judger, a gratifier, a denialer, if there's such a word, an avoider. You've got to know your words. You've got to know what you are. If you're going to have any chance of surviving you two, when two people are in ego, it's like hell. Right? So you've got to know each other's, you've got to know your own, and you've got to know each other's hotspots, triggers, fears, insecurities, issues, and then hopefully survive when you two are in ego together, right?
So if you've noticed some of those like yucky kind of things rearing their head, like for yourself, and there's a bit of self-doubt or negative talk or, just making out of character decisions or those kind of things. What are the first things that people should do to start, I guess, changing that dialogue or implementing some self-love practices? What are they? What are those first steps?
So the first rule of thumb is do no harm. So if you're in a relationship, so if we're talking about two people are in the room and one of you go into ego, shut up, walk out, get out. Shh. Zip it. The most important thing you need to say, I love you, I'm not going to do any harm. Now, that applies to the individual. So if you're alone and you start self-doubting, you have to kind of go, oops, I'm in self-doubt now. I've got to zip it. So you've got to find a way to do it. And there are two ways to do that, is to go off topic, two good ways to do it, which is to go off topic and use distraction. So go for a run, play sport, ring your mum, bake a cake, do anything that gets you off the topic. If you're spiraling into something, fear, self-doubt, jealousy, paranoia, judgment, you don't need to be in your head right now. Your head is unsafe. We need to schedule it. And, you need to be quarantined from your own thoughts. And so you just need to own those thoughts and flag them. Or the other thing you can do is flick it into focus on what you have. So I often go, whenever I get a bit wobbly or I go into fear and I go, Nadia, focus on what you have, not what you have not, or not what you're going to project. So, and that's tangible things. So I'll focus on my children. And what I'll do is I'll milk that out because I'm in a wobbly stage, right? I'm a bit frightened. So I'll go, oh, I'm so lucky to have, God, my kids are amazing. And then I'll keep thinking about it. I'll FaceTime them, or I'll touch them, and I'll praise them. So I'm really working. I'm doing physical dance work to get myself out of my head and onto what I have, or I'm taking myself off topic and doing something distracting. And that's what a couple needs to do too. If you get wobbly as a couple, do not solve problems when you're both munted. Do not do it.
Yeah.
When you're in that stress response, when you've both got triggered and it's like, ugh, you just need to go, okay, this feels, ugh, I'm going to go and have a bath. You go do what gets you right. Let's talk in an hour or not. Let's maybe not talk for the rest of the afternoon, and let's talk tomorrow when we get ourselves in a line, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So once people start implementing self-love as individuals, what flow-on effects do you see within couples and how their relationships then work better in alignment?
It's actually exactly what I said. So when I start working with a person, what happens is when their partner goes out of alignment, they stop going with them. So they start holding their own. They start going, so that they were like two couples sitting together, and this person would go out of alignment, trigger this person, and they go, there's that great song. No, you're too young, you two. I don't even know the name of the song, so it's going to be an agony thing to say, but it's like, when I go off the edge, you come flying off with me. It's a great song. I will promise you I'll see it. But it always reminds me of exactly what every couple I've worked with does. So when I start working with someone and they start becoming self-aware and taking full ownership and responsibility for their limitations, fears, insecurities, weaknesses, we've named them all and identified them, and then we've got strategies to work on all of them. This beautiful thing happens where they stop becoming at the mercy of the world around them and everybody else around them. And they don't need to be everyone else to be in alignment or happy or wonderful or positive or, now, and so the partner still goes in and out of alignment, but they just don't join them. So what happens is the partner recovers a lot quicker. And so then it drives and motivates the partner to go, wow, this is really good. Can I have what you're having?
Yeah.
What is it you're doing? Well, I'm just accepting you more now because I can see that you're just in fear or you're just in ego, and that I'm not, and I'm just going to pour love into you when you need it the most, not judgment or resentment or reaction. So the couple stops being emotional toddlers.
Children. Which is what happens, isn't it? We all go straight back there, and you're a small person who's trying to navigate the world and what you're experiencing.
And I've done that too. Like, I'm not judging anyone for doing this. I am a messy human being who is self-taught, self-made, self-loved. So just want you to know that self-love for me doesn't make me this flawless, somber, perfect human. It just makes me a very hyper self-aware. And by the way, the other tell is if I'm reacting, usually means I've emptied my bucket. So the reason I'm reacting in the first place is because I wasn't doing the foundational piece for myself, therefore my relationship, therefore my children, and all I need is one of these people to be out of alignment, trigger me, and I'm right down, in the dirt So that just tells me that's a sign that you weren't meeting your needs, filling your cup up and doing what matters to you the most.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to touch on, because it's really common, right? At the beginning of a relationship, you want to spend all this time with this person and you want to spend every minute that you've got like connecting with them. And then, that continues and continues and continues, and you start saying no to things that are in service of your career or in service of your own network or in service of your own hobbies and interests. Like something had to give. So those things sort of start dripping away. And then you get to this point where you're like, oh crap, I haven't been filling up my self cup at all. How do I start to claim some of that back?
And Sammy, that pattern that you just explained is usually, I see that manifested a lot where a woman particularly loses herself to a relationship, and I've often seen the partner cheat because she's dead. So the woman that he fell in love with is now unrecognisable because she gave herself up for this great love, and he doesn't find her attractive anymore, or as attractive. I mean, it's lots of complications, but that's a really common pattern. The single piece, one of the most important pieces of advice I'd give to young couples is to not become codependent, self-absorbed one. You are two people, not one person. And you see some couples, they start to look like brother and sister. Like it's like
as we see here in same shirts.
Yeah.
But they don't know where they start and where they end, and they have everything's together. Like you need a life, you need mates, you need time away, you need a holiday away from each other, you need to go out, get stimulus and bring it back in. You don't need to be one that does everything together all the time. Do lots together, live together, do lots together, travel together, have dinner together every night. But just remember, it's okay. Now, what you find is when those couples can't do that, they often break up really quickly. Like that, what would have lasted 2 or 3 years maybe now is 6, 9, 12 months, because it's unsustainable and it's not healthy. And that oversaturation of I'm not doing anything but being with you because you're the only thing in my life that makes me feel good, worthy, nice, wonderful, is not functional, healthy, and it's not good. The best thing you can do for a relationship long term is get a life, have a purpose, get some friends, really. Quality.
Yeah, having individual values and individual hobbies and things, so that you've got something to bring to that relationship.
Yeah, and I've helped some people map out some things like, so, I did 3 circles where like, here's you as a couple, here's you as a man, or 2 same-sex couples, whatever, but here's you as a woman. Who are you? What do you love? What do you do? What's important to you? What do you love? What do you do? What's important to you? Good, stay doing that. That will determine the longevity of your relationship a lot. Now, here's how we do us. So there's us, but there's also you, and there's also you. And it's really important that you and you stay very much, stay all those, boxes get ticked, so to speak, because that's what's going to be the anchor for your relationship. That connection to your sense of self, self-love, self-investment, self-worth needs to be filled out alone, right?
Yeah, and that's a unique thing to experience and navigate, right? Where you go from having one life, which is yours, and then all of a sudden there's your life, their life, and the collective life that you're building together. Yeah. So it's unusual.
And that's why, Sammy, often when we start a family, if we become merged as one and then we bring children into it, it can tip. That's why a lot of people break up, with kids, because kids can be tipping points for relationships, because there's just too much. I'm not solid enough in my eye. I got lost in our us, and therefore now as a family, I don't know how to manage that. So it's really so critical and important. If you have found the one and you want to, do happily ever after, let's get rid of happily ever after. It doesn't exist. It's called intelligently ever after, consciously ever after.
I love that. Consciously ever after.
Consciously ever after. Let's do that. Let's rephrase happily ever after to consciously ever after, which means I know what it takes to be in a relationship. I know the work it takes. I know that in order to preserve this relationship, I must work on myself, and I vow to work on myself. Death to his partner, I vow to fill my bucket up, and I vow to self-love, and then I vow to do all the things that we agreed upon in our us circle. So it's got to be it's consciously ever after, because it's got to be intentional. You've got to not just fall in love and bang out. It's just not going to work or work well.
Yeah. So how do we, I guess, individually and as a couple, practically implement self-love into our daily lives?
So what you have to do, again, is that self-awareness. You have to know what it is that you need. So am I allowed to ask you questions in this podcast?
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Woo! We're going to do a session live. So
here we go.
You guys need to tell me tell me now, like 5 things that you both need as individuals that you can't live without, that really fill your cup, that make you feel good as individuals.
So for me, I think having some space and having some of my own time is one of the real things which I treasure. Even if it's just having a coffee or something when I get home from work, just that short period of time to be able to have some space to myself. I really need touch as well from a relationship. That's one of my primary love languages, and it's something that really fills my cup as well.
Yep.
What else do I need?
Rock climbing, mountain biking.
Yeah, so outdoor activities as well is one of the things that I really love and really fills me up and gives me some space, I guess, away from everyday life to recharge and to, I guess, clean my slate. Yeah, beautiful and perfect, and they tell you a lot about you, right? So let's just break those down for just a minute. So what it says is that you can't be bombarded. You need to breathe in space. You need to understand how you're feeling and what you're experiencing, and you need to do that in unique ways. You need time every day. So when if and when one day you want to start a family, you're going to have to really fight for that. To keep so you're going to have to carve that in, and you know that. So you're going to have to go, I know what you need, and this is really important. So we're going to find a way to make that. So because it's a priority to you, it's become a priority to me, right? And so you live it every day now, and you have to vow to doing that and commit to doing that most days, if not every day, to take space. And so that's really important. That I think that's you have to uphold that. So therefore, then your relationship also because it's such a primary value comes into the relationship circle, and time apart and space is one of the virtues in the bubble, not only as an individual but as a person as well. Right? Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Sammy,
mine are different. So I really need time with my friends. Like I need to have social interactions, like at least weekly in person with group or individuals, like whether or not that's lunch date or a group of girls going for drinks or whatever it might be. Like I have really strong social connections that I need to feel like they're there, and there's good vibration between give take in those relationships. I need audible reading, growing, quite a bit. I'd spend quite a few hours each week, whether it's walking the dog and reading and personal growth. I need to feel like I'm making progress. Exercise is a biggie for me. Like if I don't sweat or I don't move, like I'm just not a very nice person to be around. So that, and then a creative outlet. So I really like cooking, it used to be like dancing, but something where there's a creative, trying something new, building something, making something.
And so I would say the most loving thing you could do as individuals is hold each other accountable to living that in your daily, weekly lives. And because yours are opposite, you want space and you want connection. Beautiful. I'll go take all the space you need.
That's normally what happens.
And so that's really complementary, right? But these breakdown relationships when somebody says, I need quality time and I want space. Some people don't like being alone and the other person likes fishing. And they're like, So what I say is your job is to fill each other's buckets up, fill your own bucket up as an individual. Always first, person comes first, always. Then when you decide to start a relationship, love the shit out of each other, know each other's love language and over-deliver on that. So then that's your duty of care. I love you. I know you want affection. So every day I'm going to touch you, kiss you, hug you, love you, do that. Sammy, what's your love language?
So I like presents. I like gifts.
So that means you understand that to get Sammy to be affectionate, that you need to give her, and my son's gifts. And so I do things like I put little things in his lunchbox or under his pillow that like a little crystal or even some of his own toys. I repurpose them.
I love that.
Like set it up, and he's like, Mum, did you put my Pokemon game on my bed with the little chocolate on it? I said, I did. He goes, I love it. Like he just...
that's me, man. That would just get me right, yeah.
It just means you...
Thoughtful. It's thoughtful.
Whereas mine is vacuum. If you open that, if you enter that and vacuum for me, you are hot to me right now. I find you very attractive. So it's really important to double down on that other person's value when you're in a relationship, not at the compromise of your own, but go all in. So you should be thinking every week, what can I give to Sammy? And you should be thinking, what can I give? You need to both be thinking, what can I give? What can I give? Once you've given yourself. So that's how you individually self-love, and that's how a couple self-loves. And to be honest, even though there's, we've primarily got one love language, I do think if we kind of went hard on all five, you kind of got a foolproof relationship there, because
you do.
Fill up all the cups.
Yeah, I've only ever met one person who was pissed off that her husband bought her a gift, and I then did this. I know, what a bastard!
What an asshole!
Yeah, and she's like, oh, this is good. Yeah, never. First world problem again. Yes, it wasn't probably what you wanted or how, but geez, it was thoughtful. He went to a lot of effort, and it was a big, beautiful present. So maybe pick another problem or fight to have with your husband. This is probably not that one. So I do think you can't kind of go wrong making sure that giving affection. And listen, I've done a lot of sessions this week on how to help marriages stay married in isolation, because, we know those divorce rates are really high and people have never had to live with each other again. And so, or work together at home and be isolated at home. So, it's about really knowing, I've got some clients who are in full ISO, and I said, you need to have date nights. And they're like, in isolation. I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, we're also renovating, and I'm like, well, tough. Find a room, put a candle on, have a wine, go on a date. Relationships need work and investment, and just like you do, but they have to come second. You have to come first, then it comes second. And if it doesn't come second, I don't believe it will last, because if you lose yourself to it, so if you're empty and it's full, it won't last forever. And if you're full and it's empty, it won't last either. So there's got to be that right balance between filling my cup up and meeting my needs, and then making sure. Now, when we're also in hard times of stress or duress like we are now, with the coronavirus, the pandemic, and, the economic, crisis that we're in, we have to give our relationship way more than we've ever had to give it, as we have to give ourselves. But what's interesting about this time is that we can't go and get our good feels outside the house now in the way in which we did. We can't go to the movies and go to fancy restaurants and eat fancy food, and, go to live theatre and go to the football and do all the things that maybe we needed to fill our cup and a relationship did. So we've got to get really creative and start simulating ways, and so to give you an example, and I'm not in a relationship, but I'll do it with my family. So, we can't take our kids to the movies now, so there's no movies during the week, not much television at all. Occasionally at the end of the day, like imagining they've finished school, it's 4 o'clock, they can watch a half an hour series. Now, the reason we're doing literally no movies during the holidays or the schooling days, so that when we get to Friday night, we're going to turn the lights off, cook
movie night,
and do movie night, because I have to give my kids this feeling of we're getting entertainment. This is different. We're trying to do high. And so the other thing we're doing is fancy dinners outside, tablecloth, just doing like we're at a restaurant.
Differentiating,
and cooking a meal that I'd never cooked normally, so it feels like we're in a restaurant. And so we're having to simulate and get creative. So relationships need to do the same thing. If your thing was going out for dinners, then you're going to have to find a way to simulate the same feeling. So don't try to do the same thing. What you're going for is the same feeling. We do to feel. And the other thing we've got to factor in is we're not going to be our best selves in isolation, in a pandemic, with economic recession and financial pressure. And we know that money pressures kill relationships often, because people go into fear and go into excessive cortisol brain states, and then don't speak good things, don't say good things out of their mouth. They make bad choices when you're in that high stress state, or bad emotional decisions, and we're all under the pump. So I feel like the family or the couple has to have the mantra of, God, we're under the pump now. We have to know that we just got to go easy and be our best selves and, do the best we can now. And so what I would do if I was a couple is start setting up some things about, all right, what are we going to do if we get, affected health-wise or our families do? How will we emotionally handle that? So, again, like to keep a relationship alive, you need to put time and effort into it. But to survive isolation, a pandemic and a recession, you need to double down on skills. We actually need to do a whole another podcast. Right?
And we should, yeah.
Because, it's a whole nother category. But again, it's that intentional before it's happened, investment into that relationship. Now, predicting a few markers. And so, for example, I'll give you one, Sammy, I'm going to use you as an example. So say if you were in proper lockdown and you had to do 4 weeks and you couldn't get out or get fresh air and exercise, I reckon you'd build up in frustration. So what we'd have to do is find a way to get you fresh air and movement at home creatively, because you're not going to get any of your social needs met. You're not going to get, whereas you, darling, you would just be
thriving.
Yeah, loving life.
God, you know how many men I've worked with this week saying, I could do this for a year, Nardia. This stuff.
It's great.
It's just given. Whereas a lot of other people's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. Like all the memes of mums going, matching clothes. We've got these different needs. So you need to know your personality and know your weaknesses, and you as a couple have a duty of care, I believe, to map out, what you need to do when your hotspot gets triggered.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Great advice. Yeah.
I really love that, like in this weird time, like how can you go for that same feeling, not the same thing? Like I love that. And
go double down on it. So if you need to, so whatever it is, whether it needs to be intimacy, whether you need to put more effort into, sex and intimacy, then do that. Or if you need to do more romance, where you need to do wines and candles, do that. Like whatever, you've got to get creative, or whether it needs to be
fun and board games
sunbake together. I don't know, have nude showers together for some reason, because that's fun and feels a bit cheeky and something that's not stuck at home in tracksuit pants for 4 months, right?
Yeah.
So, that's that thing of how do we spice this up, stay connected, spice this up, and remember that adventure, and because we can't go out for that external stimulation and bring it back into our relationship, we're going to have to get a bit frisky and fun and joyous. We're going to have to simulate joy, because as important as it is to prepare for emotional resilience and grit and all the things that we're going to need, we need to experience joy. So we need to simulate, we need to have the emotional literacy and the tools to help us get through self-awareness and all the tools, but we need joy, that freedom. We're not trying to be human. We're not perfecting humanism. We're just loving each other in full-time, real-time live, as much as we can.
Yeah, this has been so great, Nardia. Thank you so much. If people have been loving what you've been sharing, how's best for them to connect with you?
So you can find me at Rainbow Fire Love Queen. There's a whole story behind that, which I'm not going to give you now, but it's a great name. I was named by one of my clients, brilliant good friend of mine. And so you can go on there and sign up for Love Notes, check out what I'm doing, and, sign up to Instagram for the same name.
Awesome. So before we close out, what is the one daily practice you'd recommend we all take away from this?
If I can,
daily or weekly?
No, daily, weekly, schmeekly. If there's one thing I could get everybody to do, or I could impart, I would say stop putting yourself down. Stop working against yourself. So self-love is literally the art of acceptance, is being okay exactly where you are and meeting the moment with whatever you need. So if I'm self-doubt, I don't go, oh, you're awful, you're stupid. I go, oh, I'm in self-doubt, I need reassurance. And then I go and get myself some reassurance either from myself, as in I start writing down reassuring things, or I go and get help, or I ring a friend and I say, hey, I'm needing some reassurance. I've gone into self-doubt. I don't think they're thinking I'm bad at all. So if there's one thing that you can do that I reckon would move your life dial, it is to be okay being human and accept that by just meeting the moment where you're at and not ever, ever, ever making a commitment to never, ever, ever, if I could say it one more time, put yourself down, putting yourself, and if partners could make it a no never on allowing the other one to put the other one down or themselves down. Geez, that would change relationships. So that means no fighting would be ugly or cruel, or you don't put down, you just mirror that truth. I would say that's the single most important, powerful thing that we could all start with.
So as you probably know, we've got a couple of really special values at Fuel Collective. So to date forever is obviously one of them. Another is to love life, and the third is to be the change. And what be the change means for us is about being the change for yourself in your life and taking accountability for what you can change, but also being the change in the world, be the change that you want to see. So as a thank you for coming on the podcast today, we want to give 10 days of tuition classes to disadvantaged girls in Cambodia. That schooling system provides curriculum, allows them to get access to a teacher directly. And with that support for that classes, we get to help girls stay in school and progress to the next year of their schooling, which then has an incredible flow-on effect for the world. So we want to say thank you so much for making that possible.
Beautiful thing to do, you two. And what a great idea. And Date Forever is what actually couples need to do so they do actually stay together forever. Good on you.
And ourselves too. Date yourself, exactly. Date your partner forever.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And falling deeply in love with yourself and each other on an ongoing basis, year in, year out. What else do you want to do with life, right?
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's well, thank you so much for joining us, and we might have to get you back for round 2.
I want round 2. I reckon we should have done 19 of these.
We'll deep dive.
I'm unstuck. We didn't even tick the iceberg, so we're ready. It's a date. You can date me and my mind and my heart for as long as you like.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
appreciate
Nardia.
you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.